Hello, everyone. Welcome to your Heart in Hand preview show live on YouTube for the first time. We've done this a couple of times, but it's just been for members only. But tonight we decided to do it live on the World Wide Web. I'm Kev Armstrong. I'm pleased to say I'm joined by two of the best podders that Heart in Hand have to offer. First of all is Mr. Stephen Harrigan. Stephen, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm still in cloud nine after last night, mate, but we'll come on to that. And secondly is everyone's favourite left back, Mr. Ian Campbell. Ian, how are you?
Good evening, gentlemen. Yes, I only came down from orbit this afternoon. What a phenomenal evening, which we're going to go on to discuss. Absolutely incredible.
Aye, it's, I was a wee bit more relaxed than I thought I would be. I don't know, Stevie, if that was because when we hear these, when you do the thing at the start of the league, you look at blah, 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 get points here, pick them up there, and then you go, as long as we don't need to go to Spain to get something, because that would be the worst case scenario. Now, you done our post-match pod on the the Patreon site last night, so that should shave about 20 minutes off your answer, but what was your thoughts on the game, mate?
Look, first of all, we're missing Mr. Staff tonight, so I'd like to say I didn't share his optimism heading into the game, so this is a testament to his optimism. As you can see here, flowing the good stuff. So I'm going to ask for him to pass that Kool-Aid. I want to drink some of it. He was the first to claim they would reach the Europa League final in Dublin. I'm not very good with dates, as the last preview pod proved, but I wrote this down. Wednesday, the 22nd of May, 2024. As a date of the Europa League final. So, Mr. Staff, book me a seat in your plane, your bus, your ferry. I'll swim it, whatever it takes to get there. If we get there, I'll certainly be there. It was just a great night. It was very much unexpected, but I think it was a coming-of-age performance. So I think credit has to go to the management team. Credit has to go to the players. It was a night where we didn't have our first choice 11 available to us, and we had to go and make do with what we had. And the players certainly done that. The manager spoke post-match about having a team with balls. That's what it was. We were brave on the ball. We have our deficiencies off it. We have our deficiencies defensively sometimes. But what I would want to say is it was just a monumental performance to go to Spain and play the way we did, to press them the way we did, to be as aggressive the way we did, to take our chances the way we did, and to score 3 goals, come away with 3 points, and top the group, I think is beyond any of our expectations. And our expectations were based on history. Our expectations were based on how we've recently performed in this competition and how these players perform sometimes under duress at the most stressful moments. So credit to everybody. And I think the best thing you can say about last night is it's just another one of those historic results. Last night was a very important result in terms of topping the group and getting that victory in Spain. But if you look at our European record and part of the domestic thing, just for a couple of minutes here, then over the last 5 years, it has been remarkable. It really has. When you look at the coefficient points we've acquired for the job that everybody involved over that 5-year span has done and getting us to where we're going to places like Betis. A team, I said on the post-match, Real Madrid, only managed 1 goal, couldn't manage to beat them at the weekend, and we went in there and scored 3 and came away with all 3 points. So, a highly impressive performance. The players don't get a great opportunity to revel in it. But if we win on Sunday, then it can be a bit of a double celebration. So I won't go into too much detail, but I just thought everybody was commendable. I thought John Lundstrom was excellent. Probably one of his best games after not having maybe his best game against Dundee. But he had a real, a kind of assured performance in the centre of that midfield. Butland just, oozes command. And then Seema really just sets the tone from his press, his ability to defend, and then his finish for a goal. And to wrap it all off in the middle, we get a Cyril Dessers turned into Lionel Messi moment. So not much to complain about. In fact, none to complain about last night. But just a very positive performance. And to get that by and to be where we're going to be come the turn of the year. Look, the manager's job when he came in was to win games of football, close the gap in the league, get us through in Europe. The next thing you've got to tick off that list is obviously what we'll discuss tonight, and that's winning a cup. He's doing not bad so far, isn't he?
He somehow managed to turn Cyril Dessers into, I wouldn't even say Messi, I'd say prime Ronaldo, R9 as the kids call him. I sat here in utter disbelief at what he just done, and I was waiting for an offside flag to go up, a foul to be blown for or something, because it was just unbelievable that came from that player. It reminded me a couple of weeks ago when we played Hearts. In the midst of this appalling game of football, we suddenly created this wonderful flowing move out from the back, beat the press, and you're like, where did that come from? But even more shocking was what Dessers did last night, because he was involved with the first goal, which was, for me, was a bit comical, because the ball sort of ricochets about his feet and then Seema comes in and just has it. But then it's turning that turn. Where does that come from?
I think the entire collective Rangers support let out a massive cheer when that goal went in. Dessers has been much maligned since he joined us in the summer, for good reason. I don't think any of us will deny that as well, but we always want to see players do well. You always want to see players get confidence and get goals. That was Dessers' best performance last night, I think, in a Rangers jersey. He was a presence. He was up there. He was putting himself about. He was getting amongst the defenders as well. He was being a nuisance. Yeah, the assist for the first goal, it does kind of roll from one boot to another. I don't think he quite knows what's happening there. But yeah, the goal itself was just staggering. And I think I spoke to you guys before we came on air. I sat and watched it in the house, and I had the whole kind of my household going around, happening around me at the time as well. So I wasn't really focused on the game, but I just sat there in utter disbelief. I cheered it internally, but I was just like, where did that come from? So yeah, fantastic for Dessers. Hope for that builds confidence. Let's see if he can. You heard it here first. He's going to get the winner on Sunday, in my opinion. We'll see. But just to touch on what Stephen said, and not to go over old grounds, I'm sure everybody's listened to the majority of the pods. Last night was a performance I didn't expect. I'd consigned myself after the Aris game that we were going to finish in third, that Conference League football was guaranteed. It's not where we want to be, but yes, it's football after Christmas, European football. Then you're thinking, can you get in the second spot? Obviously, when Sparta take that early lead, then that's not going to be attainable. You've got to go for it. When we get pegged back to 2 each, again, I'd resigned myself and thought, that's it. I thought, here we go. If we can come away from playing Real Betis and get a 2-2 draw, it's a fantastic result, and it would be no disgrace to come away with that result. But when the third goal went in, and I said it to you guys before we came on air, I couldn't sit down. I was pacing up and down through my living room and kitchen. I was waiting for that final whistle to go. My heart was beating like, I put it on the exec report last night, my heart was beating like a fuck clock, and I don't think it actually slowed down until about 10:30 last night. It just kept going and going and going, and adrenaline was pumping. But overall, again, in the pantheon of results that we've had over the last few years, it started under Gerrard when we built ourselves back into a European team again after all those years in the wilderness. Last night, to me, ranks up there probably within the top 3 or 5 performances we've had, and certainly within my time watching us play in Europe as well. I'd still put it in behind Leipzig at Ibrox, where I think that was a fantastic night, but it tucks in just nicely behind there. And I think it might even eclipse Dortmund. I know that might split opinion amongst the fans, but that last night, you look at Real Betis' record in that competition, you look at their record at home, you look at their record in La Liga this season as well, they don't concede goals, they don't get beaten their home ground. And we went there and we took their scalp and we topped the group and we're through it. And what a position to put ourselves in. I heard Colin talk about it in an update today, the financial rewards that we've gained from it as well, the disparity between finishing third and then actually finishing top in terms of, I think it's 4 million in a difference. I mean, that for the position we're in at the moment as a club makes a phenomenal difference to our finances. Hopefully it allows us to go and strengthen in January. And now we can put our feet up like the big boys and we can wait until March when we have to re-enter the competition. Overall, what a fantastic night.
Stevie, one last thing we'll touch on it is mentality is a word that's often been levelled at this Rangers team. to lose a lead twice, they say the worst thing in sports is a losing lead. We've lost the lead twice, and I don't think it fazed us, because in the past we've seen this team, when they concede a goal, sometimes they shirk, sometimes you can see them going poor us. No, not last night. They just got on with it and says, right, okay, roll their sleeves up and get on with it. And that's brilliant if you've got a full squad to choose from, full first team to choose from. We don't. I think David Edgar said on last night's post-match in the update today that the bench was that young that a lot of them had to go back to school today. That's how young that bench was, and that's how stretched our squad is. But mentality last night, right where we want it to be.
Absolutely. And look, I think a big criticism of this group of players has been how they've responded to setbacks, whether it been particular games or particular moments in games. Or particular moments in seasons. They haven't did particularly well previously in responding to setbacks, but sides are built in a mirror image of their manager. And I think you look at Clement last night, you look at when the Dessers goal was in, he's turning around to the bench, it's not disbelief, he's excited, but he's excited because he's driving the team on from the sidelines. If players like Seema and that start the press from the front, he starts everything from the sidelines. He's relentless on that sidelines. He's got good clarity in his instructions, what he transfers over to the players. And I think the players have really got behind him and said, okay, this is a real serious coach here. We're going to buy into what he's saying. He's going to have to trade off in certain aspects of our game. He knows that. But even when he's bringing youngsters on the bench, he's not phased. He's not saying, previous managers have shied away from doing that and going, well, I don't want to go there. McCausland's a perfect example. He's not the finished article. He made some mistakes, and you could possibly even say at both goals he had a part to play in, causing them. But what he doesn't do is he doesn't hook them off. He doesn't make them scapegoats. He doesn't erode their confidence. He builds it, and he tells them to keep going and be that thing that won us 55. The phrase that was put about was relentless, and it is having that ability to bounce back. If you don't have that, sport is always going to give you setbacks. It's how you respond to them. Previously, we haven't responded to them very well, but right now, as we sit here again, you'll look at the position that we're in from where we were when he took over. And I mean, only the Aberdeen game, the Aris game at home as well, 2 matches which you go, not our best, but they're still not at the level they were before. He hasn't had the squad to change and that kind of stuff that we'll talk about a wee bit later. But I think it all comes from the manager on the sidelines. He is absolutely unforgiving in his demands he puts on the players, but he's not asking them to do something he doesn't believe they're capable of. And when they make a mistake, he's not taking them aside. He's not, I mean, okay, you can say the Cantwell situation, but I think that's more to do with him answering back and making a point and standing up to the players and saying, listen, I'm the big man here. I'm the one that calls the shots. It's my head in the line. But out with that, he lets the players make their mistakes and he coaches them. And I think you're seeing that last night. That game plan impressed me no end because a lot of other managers would have went there and said, let's soak up, let's try and absorb some of the pressure, let's see what they give us. And I think if that had been the case, because of the movement of Betis, because of the way they were able to find space, and especially the kind of forward areas or defensive areas, then they would have picked us apart. And there was times where you did fear a wee bit the game was getting away from us, but it was only ever maybe 5 to 10 minute spells. After that, we got the grips of the game, but you've seen the belief thrown in the players. And I think, confidence is a wonderful thing, and it's something we talk about all the time. I think the players not just have confidence in themselves, but they have confidence in the manager now, and that's what you're seeing, on the pitch, and it's showing results, to be quite honest.
Ian, the thing that impressed me about the manager was he spoke that he was even having conversations in the plane on the way over and showing videos to certain players, and he said that Dessers was one of them. Do you think that was instructions in previous games? Do you think that was instructions about Betis, or do you think that was just showing him old Ronaldo videos from the Italian football show back in the 90s?
I think it's been pretty clear, and we've touched on it on previous pods, that Clement does give direct instructions to the players, and the players follow it. You can see that. The Cantwell incident and the Irish game's quite well documented, but you can clearly see last night the players were playing to a plan. Even when Dujon Sterling came on in the second half, and I'll echo what David and a few of the other guys in the pods have said as well. I thought Dujon Sterling was exceptional last night. What an athlete, to see him stride out of that defence and then the midfield and take the ball and carrying the ball up. But the players are playing in a system that they seem comfortable with. I think Goldson touched on it as well. He talked about the manager's instructions being clear. There's a game plan there. Roof talked about it in his post-match interview as well. The interviewer said, you're going to go and celebrate. He says, no, now we get back down to work. We get back down to work. We look at the next game and we sit with the manager and we review this game and then we move on to the next game as well. You can feel that in there with the players just now as well, that they've been galvanised by Clement and his style and that real leader that you've got to have within the dugout that we've been crying out for. I think I had mentioned before, when Beale went and then we were looking at the candidates for coming in, I wanted somebody that was going to be a figurehead. I wanted somebody that was going to be able to lead from the front as well and be a leader of men effectively and take charge of that and be able to say, right, I'm your leader. You even see the post-match videos from RTV last night. Clement, he just gets it. He gets where the club wants to be. He's taken that on board quite quickly. You see that from his appointment with the coaching staff as well. The club confirmed it yesterday as well. I'm delighted to see somebody like Alex Rae stay on. It's great to have that Scottish connection in there, and let's not underestimate that. He'll be bringing that to the table and saying to Clement, listen, these games that are coming up, he'll have them fired up, ready for Sunday. He'll tell them the importance of it, how long it's been since we've won this trophy, what it means to the support historically and traditionally to win the League Cup. And then also we've got to continue winning in the league, and then obviously we'll get the game on the 30th as well, which is not going to be easy. So to have that in there as well and to have that backup for Clement, I'm sure he'll understand it and take it on board. But yeah, I think last night's probably one of the best examples so far under Clement where you can see that the players are taking on board 100% what he's saying. And that's great to see, and it's what we all want to see.
It is. Well, we're here to talk about Aberdeen. Stevie, just before I let you do your bit, I'll quickly go through the results history in League Cup finals, we have played them 6 times before, one of which was the first time the League Cup was competed for in this way, all the way back in 1946-47. I don't think we've got any podders that will remember that game, not even poor old Alan Bradley. Rangers won 4-0 that day. The next time we met in the final would be 1978-79. Rangers won 2-1. And then, of course, anyone that's any interest in Rangers from the 80s onwards will remember those 3 back-to-back finals against Aberdeen, the 3-3 draw, which we won in penalties in 87-88, the 3-2 game in 88-89. They beat us 2-1, 89-90. And then the last time we played them in the League Cup final was 92-93, part of that famous treble. For those of you who loved the 5 in a row video as much as I did, you'll remember Stuart McCall's goal after Theo Snelder's sort of getting a wee bit muddled up with that newfangled pass-back rule. But Stevie, what have you got with Aberdeen? I know we've played them a lot, so we won't go too into depth, but what have you made of them? Because they themselves are coming off a wonderful European result.
They are. And look, there was a lot of talk this week about regards to us, and I'll start off with, the situation surrounding the Myers photo opportunity. Clearly, somebody just made a very slight error and set the calendar wrong. But in the interest of balance and fairness, Aberdeen have got a bus painted, so they clearly think the cup is in their hands, if you're going to believe that. Well, look, you mentioned that result last night. They beat Frankfurt. It's been a very good week for the coefficient for Scotland. It's usually us doing the majority of work. The other 2 teams finished bottom in their respective groups, but it has been a good week for the coefficient. Just heading into this game, and just a wee point of interest, we have conceded more penalties than any other club in the League Cup this season, and that's including one given by VAR in the semi-final. And look, we all know it's not who you play, it's how you play and when you play them. And Aberdeen are no doubt in a better shape than they were a couple of weeks ago. I think the big question for them in regard to this game is how they're going to set up. Will they go with the 2 up top that we've seen at Pittodrie? Will they go with 4 across the middle and kind of 1 up top? Robson he's not known for being that expansive and carefree manager. And I think if he decides to go for 2 up top, it does carry a degree of risk, especially on that pitch at Hampden and being a neutral venue. And we're going to have the vast majority of support. So things can get away from him very quite quickly, I think, if that happens. So if they don't get that early goal, they're a side very much built for that, to get that early goal and then defend that lead. That's really what suits them best. And you've seen that last night. Again, you've seen that when we played them up at Pittodrie. But if they don't get that early goal, they kind of struggle to break down sides. So they could have liked to go with kind of 4 across the middle. I think it's worked best for them so far in that. Barron and kind of Shinnie sitting deep. They could have Clarkson, McGrath, Task kind of playing ahead of them, then getting close to Miovski. I wasn't shocked last night to see Shinnie and Miovski rested for the game with Frankfurt. I know they said Miovski's got an injury. I don't really believe that. You also seen McGarry come off, but he walked off, quite freely. Again, I think the game was done at that point, and it was a dead rubber game. It was more about conserving energy. So I don't buy too much into their perceived injury woes. Yeah, and I've not heard any other press conferences, but I think it's all just games in the lead up to kind of cup final week. If you looked at them, I've taken their lineup from last weekend. I do think there'll be maybe a couple of changes from this. They went back in a 3-4-1-2 or a 3-5-2 that they have played. Of course, against us at Pittodrie last time, they kind of progressed the wing backs a wee bit higher up. I'm not sure they'll do that for this game, but that'll be the kind of interesting thing early on to see what they do if they decide to go and be aggressive. The game last weekend against Hearts, I think, watching it back, it was a game where both sides really wanted to go direct. If you look at it, 37 and 36% of both sides kind of passes were accurate, and that's not a lot. It became a kind of tennis match for a large spells. And I say Aberdeen are just better when asked to do less in the ball because of the system they've got them. Robson's got them playing a system that kind of restricts them a lot of times being able to play through sides. They do have a very good squad. If you were looking at teams on paper, I would say Aberdeen are the 3rd best squad in this league. I don't think Hearts have got the depth that Aberdeen have. And again, I'll talk about that in a wee bit of a minute. But I think Aberdeen have the far better squad. I'm not sure they've got the better manager or the manager. We've just spent time talking about Clement and how he kind of releases the shackles and brings confidence in players. I'm not sure Robson does that. If you look at the defence, they'll play a kind of ton of direct long balls out from both kind of Roos and the back line. Miovski's not a target man type of forward. he's certainly one, and we know from experience he likes to play on the shoulders. He likes balls in behind. You try and show him on his weaker right foot as much as we can. He's very left foot centred, but they do play a ton of direct balls. Their centre backs don't really look or don't have the passing ability to play it forward that much. So that's why they struggle in games to kind of create chances. Teams know they're going to look to play it forward. And I think that's why sometimes if they don't get that early goal, the tempo of the game drops for them. Now, more often than not, what you'll see is that kind of first pass go out to the wing backs, then it'll come back inside. I suspect if you look at the Hearts game as well, they played Devlin at that kind of right-hand centre-back position. He could potentially start there. I don't think he will, but it gives him an option there. And I think one of the reasons for that is he's very athletic. So he was able to get in the ball and then push out from the back. And for example, what I mean by that is Gartman, he's not really a player who's particularly comfortable passing the ball. It's really just for him about going direct or going out to wing backs. They kind of comfortable safe passes. But I will say with the way Aberdeen have tended to set up for the vast majority of games, Connor Barron hasn't been picked, I think, due to his contract situation. I don't know what else. They haven't had anybody in long spells of games who's really willing to drop in and take the ball off that back line. So they are kind of forced to go wrong and a lot of times. Now, if I think of Barron, I know he's certainly been linked with us. And look, full disclosure, I've got an article coming out this weekend on the Gallant Few. And thank you very much to Mr. Robertson who puts it together. And I spoke to Kevin Thompson, who had him at Kelty Hearts, about the player, and he was very high on him. But I think, look, when you're taking a player from another club, especially one that's under 24, a lot of factors go into it. They look at things like his contract and offer from his current club. I think they look at international call-ups. I think they even look at things like playing time and potential interest from other clubs, but I'm not sure in the last two. But Aberdeen have chosen to kind of froze him out. And that only helps us if we're going to look at him and obviously decrease his kind of potential value. But you certainly get good possession. But if you look at the centre halves, it has been a wee bit of rotation there. Look at Gartman, Jensen, McDonald. They're the only ones that have played enough minutes to kind of put a graph up. Gartman is probably the strongest in the air, along with McDonald. Jensen, I think he's two-footed. He's played at either side. He has played at the left-hand side the last time. Some places have got him listed on the right foot, but he's comfortable on the left-hand side. And then when you look at how they've been playing in certain games and setting up, against Frankfurt last night, and something that was very noticeable early on in the game, Frankfurt decided to go long, then they gave up. And then the game became, look, I know it was a dead rubber for Frankfurt. I know they had a lot of rotation on their side, but they became very slow and passive in their build-up, and they didn't really move the ball at pace. We're going to have to do that. And for anybody watching, there's some examples of Frankfurt just getting in behind them, and they're really simple balls. They're just balls kind of played diagonally in behind the centre halves. The centre halves really don't do a great job of tracking the runners, but they got away from it. Formation-wise, they tend to play very deep. They don't give teams a ton of time and space on the ball. They try and limit what teams are doing centrally, and that's kind of what they do by design. I think you can certainly get at them. You can get passing in between them. They've got big boys in there in terms of defensive structure, but they don't react the fastest. And then if you look at some of the recent games in the league, and one of the games that was particularly interesting to me was a loss at Hibs. Now, Hibs are a team that aren't in a great deal of form. We know how Hibs like to set up, the three of us, tending to the SPFL show, and we talk a lot about Hibs blowing hot and cold. But Hibs have really had Aberdeen's number. And Aberdeen's tactics that game at Easter Road, I think, were very strange. And I think from our point of view, it's something we could expose. We have pace on our side with the likes of Sima. But they kind of left their back three, and none of them have really good recovery pace. None of them get really good acceleration. So they left them up against the likes of Boyle, up against the likes of Venti, playing a high line. Now, you look at somebody like Rubicic, he really struggles when exposed by pace. He had a decent game last night, I will say that, but he was playing a lot deeper, and everything was in front of him last night. If it goes in behind, he really struggles. And I think in that Aberdeen game, you can pin both goals on him. Gartman also failed to pick up the run of Venti. And it's very similar to, when we played them last time, I think I'd picked out the goal that Hibs scored against them in the semi-final. The one that was kind of chopped off. And it was really reminiscent of that. Then you also look at somebody like Jensen who plays in there. He kind of goes out wide. He tries to kind of drop back on. But it's just a long ball that kills him. I mean, it's a complete mess. If anybody's looking at the graphic, the back line is not particularly square. It's not a good line, but they get sucked in. And Hibs, as I say, have done an excellent job of exposing them. They stretch that back three. And when that back three is asked to go over and cover in areas, especially in wider areas, they don't do a particularly good job of it. And I'll just roll the kind of graphic for anybody watching. It's a simple long ball up, but they get caught on the wrong side, they get caught exposed. And look, take nothing away from kind of finishings and how they're getting in the chances, but you're expecting, I would expect my defenders to deal with it, because it's really just simple long balls through the middle, and they don't deal with it. There's gaps in the midfield, because again, they don't have that protection, and while they're not offering that protection, they become very easy to play through, and that was certainly apparent Easter Road as well for both goals. The defence, I think, gets caught out an awful lot by movement. They don't stop a lot of the ball carriers. Celtic exposed that, was just movement in behind and runs in behind when they played them, and that's why the result got away from them so much. And that's certainly an aspect of Aberdeen's play that's been apparent all season. They let teams go at them, and if you can get nice 1-2s, intricate passes, they struggle to keep up with you. Johnny Hayes is completely done. Unlucky for us, I don't think he will play. I think if he's going to play any part, it'll be off the bench. Devlin isn't particularly good defensively, but does offer an awful lot doing that kind of right-hand side. And they really do lack in 1v1 defending. You see that an awful lot with their play. When they're tasked to kind of shape up, they'll dive in, they'll overexpose themselves, and that leads to a lot of chances. Their midfield, I thought their shape last night was pretty decent, but again, everything was in front of them. But by design, their midfield still gets bypassed an awful lot. I think that's what we spoke about every time we played them. I'm not sure why. I'd actually like to know why Robson and Agnew decide to do this, because they've got far better players than, as I said, I talked about what I think of their squad depth and how I view their squad. The league position is embarrassing for especially for a midfield that they've got. Now, I talked earlier about the kind of importance of Connor Barron. I think it's just because they give them a wee bit of balance. They don't have it. Shinnie, a lot of people look at as a defensive-minded player, and that's true to an extent. You look at the game he had at Ibrox, but he has been playing a wee bit further forward. He's been playing in more advanced areas, possibly in position, to be in position to win the kind of second balls when they do go direct. But it does leave massive spaces between the back and front, and that's really where they've been exposed. Shinnie's looked tired. He hasn't looked as if he had the legs to kind of cover the way he did probably last season. So that's why I wasn't surprised at all to see him rested last night and rotated out. The game at Ibrox, I think, has very much been an outlier. When he's been asked to play a number of games in quick succession, he's clearly deteriorated in his kind of form. He looked out of steam against us, at Pittodrie after, I think, the first 20-25 minutes. And that was a big factor. If you look at that game, Aberdeen started like a train. We didn't start particularly well. We had a couple of half chances. But the reason we get back in it is because he faded. And I've got a wee graphic here. You look at their average possessions. Now, the top graphic, and anybody looking or anybody listening on, basically it's average possessions from the game against Hearts last weekend, and there is a gap in the middle of the park. Now you look at last night when Barron plays, the difference is night and day. He's dropping in that hole, he's picking up the ball from his centre half, but he's also been able to give that wee bit of protection. He's got good ball win ability. He had an excellent interception round about the mark against Frankfurt as well, that won the ball back. And again, if he's not there, they don't really have somebody to do that. Look, I'm not a huge fan, but you probably see why Aberdeen kind of last season wanted to play like Gogic from St Mirren, because Barron is the only one that kind of sits deeper. He's got excellent positional sense. He will take a risk in terms of making a forward pass, so that can lead to turnovers. Povara is decent on the ball, but he's not that. He'll sit deeper, but he's not got that awareness that Barron has got in a kind of defensive minded. But I will give Povara credit for his assist last night, because again, it was a very nice, neat ball, very well, very well finished by Solskjaer, but it was a good ball. If they decide to play with 3, I think Barron probably drops out, which will be good for us. Shinnie will probably be told to sit deeper, and what you've seen them do in kind of games of late is ask Shinnie to go and apply the press, be that first press. I don't think he would do that if Barron drops out. But I can really kind of foresee them going with a midfield 4 across the middle, playing kind of narrow, limited space, and then having the fullback to kind of provide width. If you look at their players, Shinnie, Barron and Clarkston, Barron is far and away the kind of player with the most progressive passes, the most player with key passes. Defensive actions tends to fall on Shinnie a wee bit, but then that's a wee bit misleading when you just take that defensive actions, because an awful lot of them are higher up the park. He doesn't win a lot of duels, he doesn't play a lot of forward passes, and he doesn't carry the ball an awful lot either. So he's in advanced areas, or he certainly has been for certain games. And then you look at somebody like McGrath and Clarkson a wee bit further forward. Clarkson, very good player, very comfortable on the ball. We know that, but he's not going to do a defensive duty. McGrath just tends to fade out of games. He'll come alive, especially if he plays close to Miovski, but if you isolate him, then I think you can expose him. Where we have to kind of, I think, be very wary of them is a danger that Aberdeen pose in transitions. And last night, we kind of get caught out a couple of times by teams playing in transition against us. Excuse me again. And just having that pace. And I think that's where we have to have a degree of protection ourselves. We know Miovski, we know Solker and Duke. They're all very clinical in front of goal. And whatever combination they go with, that's their strengths. They don't create an awful lot, but they have players that can take chances when they fault them. And that was certainly the chance, or certainly the case last night as well. They win the ball back very quickly. Duke does a good job at getting out. He doesn't make a great pass, but then he gets it wide, but he carries on his run. And it's a very good first-time finish, because it's very difficult to mark when a player's just coming on the blind side. To do that, you look at somebody like McGrath as well. Again, as I said, he's not going to do an awful lot defensively, but when he plays close to the forwards, whether it be Solker or Miovski, he just looks to get that shot across and shot on target. He'll take one or two touches and look to pull the trigger. And I say, when they do go forward, they do it with numbers, they do it with accomplishing finishers, and that is a big danger. That's what you've seen against Hearts at the weekend. Miovski, he can sometimes take part in the build-up play as well, but he's very accomplished in that, and that's Aberdeen's strengths. They've got some weaknesses, and certainly ones we can exploit, but they have some strengths, and we have to be wary of that. They use Devlin still on that kind of right-hand side, that athleticism that we've talked about, and again, we're going to have to be very aware of that kind of threat that they pose for that. They're going to look to play balls in behind. I don't think that's any question. That's what they're going to look to do. They might even look to play it down the channels and kind of drag your centre halves out. And then if they do, they've got goals from the bench. Probably something we might be lacking a wee bit in. I know we probably suspect Roof is, scored the other night or have it, but they do have a threat from the bench. Duke is decent attacking in the air coming off the bench, but a lot of their shots come from the central area, where I think we can get them, certainly in turnovers. They commit a lot of players forward, as I said, and that leads to them being a wee bit exposed. So you can get them in that sense. If you get a wee bit of composure, you pick the right pass, you can certainly do it. They kind of struggle at stopping crosses, and they can be slow in kind of reaction, anticipation. That was prevalent in their game against Kilmarnock. It was just, it's a really simple goal to lose. Great goal from Kilmarnock's point of view, but it's just it's a silly cross in, and the boy is allowed to take a touch and turn and finish. And in the box, he really shouldn't have afforded that much space. He'd been marked at the time, but they just failed to do it. You also look at the goal that lost at the weekend against Longshankland and Hearts. Comes from a corner. Excuse me. And I think it's one that really displays their weakness. Their defending set plays isn't great now. I know their stats show they can be they're probably better than average in our league, but at the back post, the keeper should come from me, right? Ruth doesn't tend to come for a lot of things. So that's certainly something we can play on. It's a good ball in, Cochrane, I think it is, it puts it across. It's a good ball in. But what's very noticeable is they have Shinnie on them. Now, I would say when you're looking at Hearts and that Hearts team, that Shankland is possibly the strongest header of a ball. Now, he's at the back post, so he has got a lot of bodies to come through. But to put Shinnie on him is kind of strange. Now, Shankland does well to kind of muscle his way in, but he's not heading the ball at its highest point. He's waiting. He's been allowed to wait till it drops down. So the keeper, the defenders really should do a lot better. And it's something that's been prevalent for a number of games this season, even against Hibs. If you get good delivery in and Neil's get good delivery, that back post area, because Roos just tends to wait. He'll tend to stay in his line. He can be a wee bit hesitant. Again, against Kilmarnock, they had an outswinging corner. Armstrong, nice ball across, but they just failed to deal, with the ball at the front post. And Kilmarnock got a free header. Roos makes a good save. But they're giving it up. Now, when they're attacking set plays, they can be a wee bit creative. So don't always look. We know that the delivery of Clarkson is going to be key. McGrath as well can do that. But they can be a wee bit creative. They will look to take it short. If Clarkson's on the edge of the box, we have to be wary, because he will look for a kind of first-time shot. I say they don't really block runners well. They give up a lot of free corners when they're kind of defending set plays, but they will be a threat attacking set plays. Penalty-wise, Miovski obviously is the main penalty taker. He's 1 for 2 this season. The one he scored was down the middle. The one he missed was to the keeper's right. But again, just to highlight Clarkson's delivery of a goal against Kilmarnock, it was chopped off and it's into that back post area. We have to deal with it before it gets across here. Very good team. Formation-wise, it's going to be interesting what they do. I tend to think they'll go 5-4-1 and try and be a wee bit more defensive than they were previously against us. I think that's the route they'll try and go down, and then soak us up, get that early goal, and then have something to defend. But we'll have to wait and see. I do expect them to play McGarry. I do expect, McDonald to kind of come in at centre half, between Jensen, Gartman. Then the question comes who they play in the middle. I think it'll be Sherry, Barron. I'm going to say that they could bring Pulava on and move Duke out, but if they play Duke, they could play him on the left and just use him for his pace in the counter, and then Miovski up front himself. Miovski, I think, is certainly start. It's just who kind of fills in there. Millen has been playing kind of left wing back and things like that. He's more a centre mid, a centre back, certainly by trade, but he can play in a number of positions. But I do expect Devlin. I know he played centre half, as I said, and that kind of left against Hearts. I do expect him to come back on that right hand side because he does give him an outlet, and McGarry does that on the opposite side. But defensively, especially at headers, especially 1v1 defending, they can be got at. The thing with us is we have to play with high tempo of movement. If we do that, we will get opportunities and chances against this side.
Stephen, wonderful as always. I've not put up all the comments from people thanking you for your hard work, but there's a few people excited. I'm going to say, right, it's a family show, this, right? But you've made a lot of people excited and very happy. A lot of praise for you. This is say the work that we put in, but it's the work that Stevie puts in, and then we just sort of comment round about. But what have you made of Aberdeen? Because we do, on the Heart and Hand Patreon site, we do the SPFL show when we get a break from Rangers playing every 3 days, but we do that show. So we've touched on Aberdeen quite a bit this year. What have you made of them out with the Rangers games? And what have you made with them when we play us? Because as we know all too well, there's two different Aberdeen sides.
They're an incredibly bipolar team. I think that's maybe the best way to describe it. I think Stephen touched on it there. The games where they've went long, completely skipped out the midfield, and I'd agree with Stephen. Some of the players they have in midfield. We talked about McGrath potentially dropping out of games. I rate Jamie McGrath. I think he's a really good player. Shinnie's there to break up the play. The games that I've seen him, I agree with Stephen. He doesn't have the legs in midfield anymore. If he gets caught up the park, then that's somewhere we can definitely exploit. But they're just a strange team. You don't know what you're going to get with them. We always knew going into that game against us at Pittodrie. I mean, I think we'd commented on our group chat, and I said, well, here they go. Here we go with a high press. Alex came back and said, well, do you expect anything less? Well, the answer is no, I don't. But why don't they apply themselves like that in every game? And they started in that game, they were pressing us hard, they were harrying us, we were going in for every 50-50, they were trying to win the second balls. You really don't know what team you're going to get. They're going to put a performance in last night against Frankfurt, and as much as we said there was players rested for Frankfurt and they've done a lot of rotation after a great result at the weekend against Bayern, at the end of the day, they're still beating a top Bundesliga side at home, albeit there's not anything there to play for, but it's a good performance which gives them confidence going into this game. It'll be interesting to see what the lineup is. I agree with Stephen, to see what the personnel is going to be like. There are options in there as well. He does have attacking options as well. I've been quite impressed with Povara this season. When he's come off the bench, he took his goal really well last night. It was an absolute cracking finish. So we need to be wary of that. Duke is, again, very much like the kind of thread of Aberdeen being bipolar. So Duke can be quite unpredictable about what he's going to do. I'm still convinced that goal against Hearts, Duke was trying to chip the keeper. I know we talked about it and we've seen it. We talked about it as well, Kevin. I don't think he means that. And he's just got this little factor about him, Duke. You're not 100% what he's going to do. But I agree with Stephen. Miovski will definitely start. I think that's a bit of one where he's been held back and maybe wrapped in a bit of the traditional kind of cotton wool for the final as well. But he's a very intelligent forward. I can't see him staying at Aberdeen beyond this season. I wouldn't be surprised if they get bids for him in January. Maybe domestically they might get a bid. There's been talk in the media about Celtic making an approach for him as well, potentially looking to get a striker. As you see them, they're kind of rotating their strikers at the moment as well. But very intelligent player, and if he's teamed up with Duke and Duke's putting the ball into him, that's something that Stephen said we're going to have to be wary of that. Very intelligent players across the team.
Ian, see just on that with Duke, I don't know how you feel, but my kind of feeling is he doesn't fit Robson's system when he plays that kind of 5-3-2 or 4-3-5-2, because where he wants to be is either coming off the left or playing a central role. He doesn't want to do the defensive work. We know that. And Robson's system, when he plays that kind of back three, doesn't get the best out of him. That's why I'm thinking he's going to play that kind of 5-4-1. But I think it'll be midfield, keep it tight, keep it compact, use the wing backs, and then maybe introduce Duke just for that wee bit of explosiveness, because you need to put in a shift both ways. I'm not sure he's a good fit. I don't think Aberdeen have seen the best out of him this season because of the system that Robson's asked him to play. That's my take on it. And they've got somebody like Solskjaer. They've got some. Solskjaer, I think, started his first game against us, which is kind of strange. So, do you think they'll go with two up top? That's probably the question. Do you think they'll be risky enough to go with that again? I said before we played them at Pittodrie, I expected two different games. I'm probably still of that feeling, and I think the game plan last night, where they played that kind of 5-4-1 formation and sat deep, I think it'll be very much the same, just a change in personnel that started that game.
I'd be shocked if he starts with two up top, but your comments on Duke are absolutely spot on. He doesn't fit into that system, and he has his best performances have been coming off the bench. He doesn't have that mentality in him to do the backtracking into the midfield and do that little bit of the doggies work, as we call it in football. So I would be really surprised if he starts. But again, it's going to be interesting when the team lines come out as well, to see exactly who they're going to start with. They have options. You've alluded to that as well, Stephen. They do have options on the bench, and that's something we're going to have to be wary of. Clarkson's an excellent young player. I think he's going to go into a lot of bigger things in Aberdeen. I certainly think Barron will move on freedom of contract. I think that's a certainty. He obviously seems to have a standoff with the club at the moment as well. But again, a very exciting young player. So no doubt about it, we're going to have to be switched on. I said to you guys before we started recording tonight and before we went live that they will have their tails up for this. There's no doubt in my mind, coming off the back of that, a very positive result. They will be gunning for this, and we need to be switched on right from the beginning. We need to get it right. We need to make sure that we're closing down the spaces. We're not giving them the opportunity. We cannot start the way we did the last time we played them at Pittodrie. I felt we allowed them to dominate the game for the first 25 to 30 minutes. We never really got into our stride. We need to take the mentality we had last night, take the feel-good factor, if you want to call it that. Our players should be absolutely buzzing, which I'm sure they are, and the management team, and we roll that into Sunday as well. And we go for the get-go. Just don't allow them to play. And that's where we need to stop them. We need to stop them. Any kind of threat, we need to nullify it within the first 5-10 minutes, and then make sure that is the case going forward for the entirety of the game.
For me, the game up at Pittodrie, Aberdeen hurt us quite a lot with direct balls in our number 6 position, if that makes sense. I think the goal actually came from that. Now, obviously, we're going to come on to pick our teams in a while. A lot of people in the comments are saying about DJ Sterling and how good he was last night, which surprised me because I thought he looked a wee bit lost playing in there on Saturday. But I say that's something that I think we might well be talking about when we come to pick our teams. For those of you wondering, we always tell you the referee, it's Don Robertson. Again, it's never easy judging a Scottish referee because I don't think any of them are particularly good. Andrew Dallas is your VAR official. But for those of you who are new, what we do is we've got 5 sort of storylines or talking points. Stephen's provided them tonight. So, Stevie, I'll ask you your own question back pretty much, mate. What has Clement given us that we were missing? Because he hasn't been able to change personnel. He's faced injuries, he's faced suspensions, he's faced more injuries. But here we are, we're in a cup final. We've made up ground in the league and we're through somehow after those 2 pretty poor performances against Limassol. We've topped a group with Real Betis in it. What has he done and why is it working?
Well, I think first of all, on a day where Michael Beale, I don't know if he's been named, but certainly close to being named manager of Sunderland, look, and I do wish him well. I think the way he went about getting our gig and everything else, it just didn't work out. Hopefully he's learned. And look, progresses. I wish him all the best. But what the difference is Clement has gave us authority, he's gave us professionalism, he's gave us accountability, and he's gave us belief. And I think they 4 things, when you factor them in to everything that you see on the pitch now, is why we're so much better. That's what you go and get the best available candidate for. And that's what he was. He was certainly the best available that we could have got. I didn't think he would be somebody that we'd be able to attract initially. So credit to everybody involved that was able to go, not only identify him, but convince him to come here. And he's taken the challenge on in abundance. He's not shied away from anything. But if you look at last night, we were playing a La Liga team. I talked about at times where I felt the game was a wee bit stretched with us. We never really lost our shape. The graphic that I put up earlier about Aberdeen, their average positions, if you look at the average position for us last night, it's very much a clear back 4 now. Lundstrom is dropping a wee bit deeper, but we have patterns of play. Goals is dropping in. And it's very clear when you're watching us now that we're working on that type of thing. They're the things that we're missing, and they're the things that we were screaming at early on in the season, saying we were screaming at pre-season, saying, where is this? Where are these things that you do in a coaching sense that translate onto the pitch? We weren't seeing them. We didn't see them at Rugby Park. We didn't see them early on in European games. They just didn't exist. Clement's come in a very short space of time, identified issues, had to trade off on other issues, but he's gave us that authority, and everybody's accountable. There's nobody getting away with anything. You look at how he's dealt with players. The Cantwell situation is a great thing. That could have really got a hand in it. And I think, look, it might just be down to inexperience. If it had been the previous manager, I think that would have ran away with itself. I think we would probably still be talking about it, especially in a city like Glasgow, where things can go sour very quickly and things can grow arm and legs. But he dealt with it very professionally the next day. He dismissed it. He put out a hand. He put him back in the team. He was rewarded. I know he didn't feature last night for a personal issue, and hopefully everything's fine. He's able to start on Sunday. But in terms of coaching, he just gave us that platform. We have the patterns of play. We have a clear instruction, and that's what the players are bought into. But they know they cannot step out of line now. They are not running the classroom, I think, as he previously was under Michael Beale. And that might, again, just be down to pure inexperience because it was his first gig. It might be because they had that previous relationship and that distance maybe didn't exist for as much as it could have done. I don't know. It might just be he was the wrong man at the wrong fit. It could be all of these things. But Clement has that presence on the touchline, has that presence in the dressing room. It's people say about fits for different clubs. I'm not sure he's the right fit for every club, but right now he's the right fit for us, and I think that's what the most important thing is. And the difference in him and what he's been able to do with this group of players, he's not went out. He's not coming. I mean, you look at across the city, right? They're getting basically beefed out the Champions League, and the manager's making comments of we're going to have to go with the squad that we've got now and all that kind of stuff, which is hilarious, right? Absolutely. Sorry, that was against Kilmarnock. He came out with comments like that after the defeat at the weekend. Clement has never really come out with that. I don't recall him, and if he has, I apologise, but I've not heard him say that. What he's saying is, this is who I'm going to work with. If I need to go younger, I'm going to take a risk in a player. I'm going to find a player that can go and do something in the forward areas, and then we'll worry about defensive shortcomings later. We'll deal with that, and we'll deal with it as a group. But he hasn't come out and says, well, I don't want to touch him, or I can't work with him. He's decided that he's going to try and get the best of everybody. He'll have a clear plan in his head. I'm sure he'll say, I want to replace that player, I'd like to do that position. But he's doing it all in a calculated and I think a very experienced manner. So you can tell that he not only played at the top level, but he's managed at the top level well and he's handled top players. And I think that's the biggest difference because you can probably underestimate the day-to-day aspects of our job. It comes with so much from the coaching to the almost dealing with players and all their issues. And he's got to deal with every single player in that squad. He's not going to keep them happy. But whereas before, as if players weren't playing, I think unhappy players were, I don't want to say disruptive because maybe that's the wrong way, but making noises. I think Clement's approach is, I don't want you to be happy you're not playing, but I do expect you to be professional. And if you're not professional, then you'll have me to deal with. And I think that's the starting point, and it's a great starting point. It's got us to where we are at this current moment.
Ian, as well as the tactics and passages of play, which we all love to see, and it's a vast improvement, right? The thing that stuck out for me the most, and people say things without saying them, right? DJ Sterling was in the press this week saying that the manager's door's always open. The manager spoke about sitting down with Dessers on the plane and other players and just having conversations with them, right? In a week where Sakala's come out and said that Michael Beale pretty much packed his bags and forced him to leave and told him not to come to the training ground. For me, I think the biggest difference with this manager, and Stevie touched on it there, it might just be experience, but it's the way that you deal with players. Because you could be the best tactician in the world, but see if you don't have the respect and you don't have the ears of the players that they're willing to listen, then that message doesn't get across. So I think a lot of it is down to his man management. But what's your thoughts on Big Phil?
I agree 100%. I think I've worked in management most of my life, and any kind of management, be it within any sector, any industry, any business, man management, you can't discount how important it is as well. And we've seen that since Clement's come in from the very get-go. He will have these individual conversations with the players. You see it when a player comes onto the park. He will take that 30, 40, 50 seconds, whatever it is, a minute to speak to the player and let them know what their role is within the team. the things that are coming out now under Beale, but Sakala, Beale spat the dummy with Hadji. Let's be honest, we all know that. That's what happened. He spat the dummy because Hadji called him out about his game time in an interview, which, again, I don't like see players do that, but that's the reason probably why he went on loan to Alaves. That's it at the end of the day. You know, Clement strikes me as a player whereby, as Stephen touched on the Cantwell situation, yep, it was one of these situations, but he's dealt with it. He's probably spoken to the lad internally and went, listen, you're integral to my team. I believe in you. This is what I think you can do. And Cantwell went on to, what was the game after? Aris, remind me, because my memory's terrible, but he had a great performance, a really good performance after that, strong performance. I think belief, confidence, letting the players know exactly what he wants, the standard that he expects. There's a big difference in life between being a manager and being a leader. Clement's showing that you can be a manager, but you need to be a leader. You need to lead the football club. Go back to 2018, we had a former captain of Liverpool come in, and he was a leader, and he led the club as well. Managers we've had so far in between that, Gio was a manager, maybe not a leader, brilliant player in his career, relative success, small success with us, if you want to call it that. Clement's a leader, and you can see that, and that's what Beale maybe lacked, and that's maybe what I think's galvanised the players. That belief that they look to him as a leader and say, right, when you tell us what to do out in the park. Stephen, you touched on it. You said we never lost our shape last night. We never lost our discipline. The players never stopped doing the job that they were told to do. And maybe the best example of that was Sterling when he came on. And we talked about it on our group chat and thought, it might be quite harsh. I'm not Cifuentes' biggest fan, but I thought he had a decent first half. And we thought it was a tactical change. But when Sterling came on, he broke the play up. He was harrying players because Clement's told him, this is your job. This is what you're going to do. This is where I want you to be in the park. When he got that opportunity to break out and go up the park, strode up with the ball, takes the pressure off you straight away at the back. And you can see that within the players. They know their role within the system. They know exactly what they've got to do. And that can be the difference between a manager and a leader, in my opinion.
Do you know what it can also be? And it's clarity of communication. I said on the post-match last night, we were talking about the kind of set-piece instructions. And I think he has simplified it. And I would like him to change a couple of things. I spoke about putting Seam out the kind of near post, things like that. But I think he's not over-complicated players. He said, this is what you're going to do. I'm not going to overload you with information. I mean, it's very famous when Mourinho was at Chelsea. He didn't give his players like 8-minute clips on who they're going to be up against. It was short 30-second clips, so they're not, being paralysed by too much information. I do wonder if his ability to communicate, ability to basically convey the information to the players is a lot different than the previous manager. Again, that might be experience, or it just might be his way of communicating, because, look, English isn't his first language, but he's very clear when you watch him in press conferences. He doesn't pull any punches. You don't come away from watching his press conference and think he's giving us a word salad. He's just talking nonsense to us. He's clear. He's crystal. We might not. You can disagree with what he's saying, and that's fine. That's your prerogative. But there's no doubt when you watch him what the message he's trying to get across. It's simple. It's clear, but it's clarity. He's provided his clarity that we lacked, I think. And I think this is the exact same for the players. He's not overcomplicating it. He's not saying to one player. The Sakala situation is a great example. Sakala talks about being, not being told that he wasn't surplus to requirements. I wasn't Sakala's biggest fan, and I would have sold him at the same time. But at the same point, there's a way of doing it. You don't have to freeze out the player, especially when a player's that popular. It doesn't look good on you, put it that way. And I don't think Michael Beale would have done it out of badness. But it's maybe just that lack of communication skills that Clement absolutely has in abundance.
But when you're managing players, or in any walk of life, any industry, you need to identify with your personnel what their strengths and their development areas are. Clement's probably come in and looked at the squad, and that was a really good point you made as well, Stevie. He's not come out and talked about the squad. He's not come out and said, I need to strengthen in January, I need this, I need that, the way that Rodgers has with Celtic. He's come out and he said, look, this is the squad I'm working with, this is what I'm going to do. You come in, you identify, you look at an individual, look at their strengths, look at the areas you need to develop. He'll have already taken from day one and said, right, with that individual, this is what I want to work on. I'm going to put his coaching staff on it. One of the patrons just commented there as well and said, did the players look fitter last night? To me, they did. I think they've looked fitter over the last 3-4 weeks because you can see that difference within the training.
Is that desire, but is that fitness coming from also in desire in terms of the players now believing what the manager's saying a wee bit better, so are able to go that extra, that extra 5 yards? It's just he's getting more out of the players because of that.
I'm on record of saying on numerous shows on the network that Michael Beale just talked too much in press conferences. He contradicted himself continually. Clement is straight down the middle of the press. He bats away their bullshit every time they try to lead him down the garden path, which every good hack within the industry must do to try and get a story. He just bats it off completely, and he tells them what he wants to tell them. So you can see that from his experience as a player. You can see it from his experience as a manager as well. So yeah, as you touched on there, Stephen, as well, communication, telling the players exactly what he wants. Keep it simple. This is what you've got to do for me. And at times, I think it was pretty clear with Beale that communication wasn't there. So the players, it will be a breath of fresh air for the players to have him come in and go, right, this is what I want you to do, and here's how you're going to fit in the system, and this is what we're going to work on with you. To assess the players and say, this is how I'm going to make you a better player. Guarantee when he came in, the first thing he did was sit down and have one-to-ones with every player. That's the first thing to do. Sit down, learn about that player, learn about their skill set, and then look at their development areas. No player's perfect. There's areas they can always improve, be it fitness, be it other aspects of the game as well. And I believe 100% Clement done that. You know, probably the first week he was in the door and said, right, this is what I want to know all about you.
Probably the one that sums it up for me is John Lundstrom, who I think we all remember the sort of viral clip that went, was it last year or the year before, when he lost the ball and he just sort of started walking away and never tracked back. Now you've got him sprinting up the left touchline, knocking the ball past players. So that's desire, and that's personalised training methods.
Do you know what I also think as well? He's obviously had a word with him in terms of Lundstrom. Like I'm not sure he's of the value. The wages it is on, I'm not sure I would give him a new contract, okay, on the same value. If it's less, then you can talk about that possibly, right? But I think at the moment we've had a lot of injuries. I'm pretty sure Clement would have taken him inside and say, I need you to lead this team. Now, you are the man in there. You have to take this. We'll go as far as you will take us. I think at that point, we've got Goldson at the back, we've got Tav and other areas who very much lead by example. We've got Seam up top, but we have been very short in the middle of the park, and I think he's probably made a point, and you know, Lundstrom's worked very hard at it as well, but he said, look, this is yours now. If you have to seize this opportunity, we've seen that under Van Bronckhorst in the road to Seville, that kind of form that he showed, and then it kind of tailed off. Maybe he's a player that needs to be challenged and comes out when, I don't want to say chips are down, because some of the games he had were pretty poor, were games he did give up, and even last night he had that stupid foul that still frustrates me, where he gets that booking where I don't think he needs to get it, right? But the difference is he didn't chuck it. He didn't, you know, as you say, Kev, he didn't decide, I'm not having this. He just kept going. He was very assured in his performance. And I think that, again, comes from the manager, but it probably comes from the manager and him sitting down, having a conversation, saying, we're light in here. You're the main man. I trust you. I'm not going to be sitting on the sideline giving you 30 tactics, your Opta stats and all that during the game. You know how to play football, but I expect you to do this to a certain level, and then we'll dissect it afterwards. And I think the manager's did a very good job of that, and I think that's why he's getting the best out of some of the players that look, a couple of months ago would have been absolutely discarded.
I'm not one of these guys that wishes Alan Michael Beale it and didn't work out, fair play, move on. But it sort of reminds me of the Ellie Simpsons episode where Mr. Burns is in charge of the baseball team, and he's sort of saying to Homer, when I do this, you do that. When I do this, you do that. When I stand the one leg and wiggle this, you do that. And you just see the sort of switching off. We'll get a couple of questions in, right? Now, we're going to do a Q&A at the end. A couple of people asking about certain players, who we would sign, who we would play. But we'll crack on and we'll do this, and then we'll do a wee Q&A at the end and just get your opinion on some strikers, Stevie. A certain one from Hearts, but we'll come on to talk about that. Point 2, what is playing Aberdeen multiple times this season told us about how we need to approach things? Stevie, is it as simple as don't give them the first goal and allow them to sit in?
Look, it's never as simple as that, because if they scored first, we're going to have to react to it and deal with it. I think what it's taught us is it's going to be as much a physical and mental battle as anything. The old phrase is Aberdeen always play every game against us as if it's a cup final. This is a cup final, okay? We have to be prepared mentally and physically. They're going to try and rail us. They're going to have spells in the game, because I do think they're that talented. You can even make the case that some of their midfielders, Ian talked about Clarkson. Clarkson is far better on the ball than like Sterling, but we're going to have to match him in athleticism. We're going to have to match him in physicality, and there's plenty of areas we can expose them. But what it's told us they'll have a lot of confidence from the two times that they've played us. The twice that they've played us, obviously, this season. They had the game at Ibrox, which we were dreadful in, and they exposed us at set plays and things like that. They exposed us at winning second and third balls. Did the game at Pittodrie where they started really well. And look, I didn't think, I know the manager said we played well. I kind of disagree. I didn't think that unless we got that penalty, we were really getting anything out the game. But what it does is they two matches give the Aberdeen players, gives the coaching staff a degree of confidence heading into it. Now, hopefully that confidence is overconfidence, but we have to respect that. We have to know that we're very much in a game. I don't think you can be expected to turn up here and win 4 or 5-0. If that happens, so be it. Football can throw up their type of results, but I just don't think it's going to be that type of game. And for all the tactics that we spoke about and everything else, we have to be mentally prepared. I thought Ian made an excellent point about Kamar Roof's reaction last night about the celebrating, and that was very telling. It wasn't a moment last night to dwell on things. It was a moment to look forward, refocus, pat yourself down and say, good job, celebrate it on Sunday night. And even in Sunday night, you're going to get a very short burst because we've got a league game coming up a couple of days later. But that confidence carries forward. Aberdeen head into this confident after a big result, but confidence after 2 games against us. And I think anybody that's played football, you know players' tendencies, and you'll go, okay, I played against them before, that worked, that didn't work. That will all come into play. But for me, I would just like us to stand up to their physical and mental challenge in the first aspect, because I think if you can break that down, they're more fragile than they portray at the moment. Okay, their league position shows that. They have glaring weaknesses. Their best games have been reserved for us. If it wasn't for the points against us, they would be near enough bottom of this league. And look at that squad that they've got. That is an absolute joke. I mean, an absolute joke. There is nothing to get away from that. But it's us, it's them with the opportunities to progress up the league. Say, take the 2 games as away, they're in dire straits. So we have to be aware of that. But there's certainly things we can get it. But if we don't stand up to it, we always talk about getting ball down to their level. Okay, they're going to be that direct, that physical team, that ball's over the top. Prepare for it and don't shy away. And if things do go against us, if we do concede first, okay, react like we did the other night. We scored first against Betis, but when we went behind, as you say, the heads didn't drop. It's a 90-minute game or a 97-minute game or a 98-minute game, whatever it will be. We have to keep with the plan and keep focused and not lose our heads. I don't want to see ill-discipline. And the one thing I don't want to see that we've had at previous visits to Hampden is just switching off. It's just laziness. And it comes from laziness in the mind opposed from tired players. It's just players switching off at throw-ins, at free kicks. And it drives you absolutely nuts as a fan because it's the most basic thing of all. Because good players switch on when the other team, has a set play. Bad players switch off, and we've been exposed by it, and that is mental tiredness. So I think the big thing for me is just having that mental focus. And if they want to fight, give them a fight. Let's kick their ass whatever way they want to do it. That's a simple aspect to going into Sunday. Whatever way they want to play, we can outplay them, we can outscore them, we can outmuscle them, but we have to be prepared to face up to that challenge and take them on, head on first.
Ian, is it all long balls and set plays that we need to watch out for on Sunday, or is there anything else that you've sort of pinpointed watching Aberdeen this year that could cause us issues?
Couple of things, couple of key areas in my opinion. We need to stop Graham Shinnie dictating the game. That's a certainty. There's been games he's played against us. He ran the game at Ibrox, ashamedly for us. It was shocking what Shinnie was allowed to do that day. He was in the referee's ear constantly. He was dictating everything. He was everywhere all over the park. He was snarling. He was snapping into tackles, left, right, and centre.
Would you man mark him? Would you have somebody sitting him, like even a Sterling, just because he's not got a great physical profile? So
no, he's not. And Sterling, I would put. Actually, that's my thoughts last night when Sterling, his performance in the second half was put Dujon Sterling on Graham Shinnie. Don't let him get the ball. Don't let him dictate any kind of play, any rhythm of play as well. Get on top of him in the first 5 minutes. It might sound really basic, but put a marker on him within the first 5 minutes. Let him know you're there within the midfield. I think it's critical that we win that midfield battle, that we dictate the tempo from the midfield within the first 5-10 minutes. We've talked about Aberdeen's bipolar character this season so far. They can switch it, they can go long. We've seen that before, but they can run it through the midfield. They've got the personnel to run it through the midfield as well. That's got to be a key area for us. We've got to win that battle in there. We're short on options, we know that. So the reality is, to my mind, we'll come on to lineups later, that it's going to be Lundstrom with Sterling as well. So that's, again, something that's got to be very important. Somebody's just put up there, Ryan Jack. Will Ryan Jack make it? I don't know. Do you get 50, 60 minutes out of Ryan Jack? If he's fit, then great, get him in there. It gives us another option. Maybe not to start, but certainly we've got to win that midfield battle. The other key thing is we have to stop the supply into Miovski. You touched on it there. I've said it as well. He's an intelligent striker. He's very intelligent. You give him space and time, he'll punish you. You've got to make sure he's not getting that supply in. I think it's really vital. As we seen last night, if McCausland starts, which he probably will, in my opinion, then we've got to make sure that Tavernier's getting that protection. Sima gave it to Barisic last night in spades. You could see that. The work he was doing to track back, the tackles he was putting in, the amount of times he was down on our own byline to win the ball and put that tackle in. McCausland's got to do that, and that's an instruction that's got to come. I'm pretty sure it will, because I'm sure Clement would have seen it last night and went, right, listen, when he goes, you need to tuck in, or you need to be the one that's coming back, giving him that little bit of support. We have to stop the supply into Miovski. And as I say, we've got to win that midfield battle early on, put down a marker.
All valid points, Yeah, I agree on Sima. Even when Sima's not been playing his best lately, went through that wee sort of barren spell, he's still been a wonderful teammate. Absolute wonderful teammate. But yeah, we'll come on to pick our starting 11 in a couple of minutes. But Stevie, point 3, cup finals have a way of making an unlikely hero. We all remember McCoy's overhead kick against Hibs after coming off the bench. Still one of my favourite memories as a child. But I spoke about earlier, Stuart McCall scoring wearing number 2, I want to say, and did he start at left back or something ridiculous that day or something? But against Aberdeen, I say we can all remember vividly the Snelder sort of the ball coming back. Was it Winnie that the ball?
David Winnie.
Trying to play the ball through. When he stuck out a toe, and you just see the fear in Snelder's face because of the old pass back rule. Stuart McCall was a hero that day. Who do you fancy to be a hero? Perhaps an unlikely one, because obviously someone like Sima would be the obvious one with his goals this year. Cantwell is still the poster boy of the support, but who would you like to see if you could pick one yourself personally? Who would it be?
Well, I think all of us, we even remember Neil Murray scoring I know it was a Scottish Cup final, but scored against Aberdeen. I think opened the scoring in a Scottish Cup final against them. So there's cup finals have a way of doing that. I'm going to take Leon Balogun, and that might be a precursor to us picking a starting 11. But I'm going to take him to come up with the goods from a set play. I think he can win the headers. We've talked about the areas we've identified Aberdeen are particularly weak in. So I'm going to have Leon Balogun as first goal scorer.
Interesting. He's come close a couple of times and probably should have had the goal. I think he's hit the bar a couple of times as well, a couple of good headers. Ian, if you were to pick one, or if you were sitting having a wee dream about this final, who would you have as your unlikely hero?
I kind of touched on it when we started the pod tonight. I'm going to go for Cyril Dessers. The much maligned Cyril Dessers, as we talked about earlier, which has been really justified. Last night might be that watershed moment for Dessers. I think if he's got that confidence, I think he will start. There's no doubt in my mind that Kamal Roof will come off the bench. But I think he's got the bit between his teeth now. You could see what the goal meant to him last night. You could see when he celebrated it with his teammates. That's one thing I will say as well. Every time he scored a goal or he's assisted with a goal, the majority of times he's scored, you've seen the team go up and celebrate with him as well, which I think is quite telling, that he must be putting the work in training. We're not seeing it yet. We've seen the reward of it last night when we got the second goal, which was pivotal. And yeah, I fancy Cyril Dessers with a mazy run like he did last night into slot one by Kyle Roos. I think he's going to be an unlikely match winner and might actually develop into a cult hero. There might be time for Cyril Dessers to redeem himself in the eyes of support. Hopefully it starts on Sunday.
I wouldn't mind it. Probably decent odds at the bookies for another goal like that. But Stephen, what is your full starting 11 for this final?
Okay, I'm going to go with Butland and goals, obviously. Tav, the captain, at right back. Golson, Balogun, Barisic. I think it'll be Sterling, Lundstrom, Cantwell, Sima, Dessers, and McCausland.
You've got the exact same team as Paul has there. Ian, have you got any changes? I think looking at that, you could say Davies played the other night. Did he earn a spot? Probably not. For me, I think the only real question is, well, there's two questions really, isn't there? There is the defensive midfield situation? Do you drop Sterling in there, or do you hope that Ryan Jack's fit? And is Cantwell come back in for Lammers, who I don't think anyone picked to be their hero, which is a wee bit of a shame for him?
I would 100% go with the lineup that Stephen just mentioned there. That for me has got to be the starting lineup. I think to risk Ryan Jack after the period he's been out for and the lack of match sharpness, it's not a folly that I think Clermont's going to make. Ryan Jack could give you maybe 20 minutes off the bench. We know what Roof can do, as an impact sub. I think that's where it's going to be tomorrow. And I think the team kind of picks itself. On the Davies option there, I like Davies as a centre-half, a ball-playing centre-half, but he sometimes struggles with the physicality, and I'd be worried that potentially Miovski would bully him. So I think he will put Balogun in there. Now, Balogun in the last game against Aberdeen at Pittodrie, I thought for the first 30 minutes had a really, really shaky time. I was a little bit concerned. He settled right into the game. So I'd say that experience with Balogun's going to come in. He seems to be the preferred choice for Clermont as well. Cantwell, as Stephen said, I hope things are resolved for Todd Cantwell. We all hope that it's nothing too serious, the personal issue, that he's able to be available. If Cantwell doesn't start, then really your options are pretty limited. Then you could probably see Lammers coming in. And again, we could hope, if he could replicate that goal against Dundee, which was an absolute topper, then, the boys, we can all see it with Lammers. He's got the ability in there somewhere, but it's just trying to bring that to the fore and make sure he's consistent with it as well. So, yeah, I'd go with that lineup. I think McCausland and Seam either side of Dessers. Lundstrom still in the midfield with Cantwell dropping off them and joining in with the attack as well. And, cameo appearances off the bench for Jack and Roof. And probably Matondo, who, in my opinion, didn't have a great game last night when he came on. I thought Matondo was a bit... He's a very hot and cold player. He can come on in some games and he looks really good. He'll do a couple of moves, passes. Looks good. Last night I thought wasn't his best game. So, but then you're looking at your attacking options on the bench. We had a team of kids last night, a squad of kids on the bench as well. So, might well see that's the case. But yeah, let's go with that starting 11 and see where we go from there.
Yeah, Matondo was a strange game, but again, we all know that he can't really play off the right. But when you've got Seema there, it's sort of, to me, you've sort of got to be one or the other out there. Right, lads, before we go into Q&A, we will ask the important question. Alex Staff, who the godfather of the preview pod, I'll give him his dibs. He went for 2-1 Rangers. Stevie, you've asked the question, will this be the biggest chocolate out of the Advent calendar? Will we bring home this trophy? And what's your score prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to go for 2-1 after extra time, and I'm going to take Kamar Roof to come on and do his another super sub performance. Last night, I'd said in the post-match, the positional sense of him, getting that goal was excellent. It reminded me of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, because that's the position he used to take up at kind of set plays. I used to watch him a lot when I was younger, and that's how he got so many goals. So I'm going to take Kamar Roof just to come on, because when the game stretched a wee bit, I think he's got that game intelligence. Again, he's another player that I don't think he'll be with us long term. But if he gets 10, 12 goals to the end of the season, fine. Helps us win a cup, helps us win the league. Brilliant. He certainly goes with my best wishes. It's just his body has failed him, and there's some players like that. So, no, I think Kamar Roof will get the winner, will be after extra time, and Liam Balogun to score first.
Somebody can put that into Sky Bet and see what your odds are for that, Stevie. Ian, what have you got?
I think it's going to be a tight affair, as Stephen mentioned earlier. It's not going to be a steamroller. We're not going to go into a 4 or 5 scoreline, so I'm going to go 2-0. And I fully believe that Seema's going to continue his hot streak. I think he'll get the first goal, and to wrap it up, your man Cyril Dessers will get the second goal, and we'll complete it in 90 minutes and not go to extra time, because my heart can't take it after Thursday night.
Stevie, I had it actually 2-1 after extra time as well, but just to be different, I'll go 3-1 after extra time, right? I think we'll break them. Gentlemen, before we move on to the Q&A, which, as long as the viewers, listeners want to ask questions, we'll sit here for the next 10, 15 minutes and answer a couple of questions. Anyone get anything else to add?
Nope.
No, we're all good. Right, I'll start us off with one of the questions I've seen, right? Or two I've got. And Stevie, the first one's for you. How long does it take you to do your research for your PDFs? Because those are perhaps some of the most in-depth that I've seen.
It depends. I mean, depends on the fixture. I suppose if I know who we're going to be playing, I can build up over a couple of weeks and just keep adding to it. So, yeah, in terms of this fixture, obviously, you know, Aberdeen are coming up. So you just progress it week by week and add to it. And things you see you'll look for in certain games. And to be honest, it worked out quite well last night as well because they kicked off before us. So you've got a chance to kind of watch their game, you watch your game, take notes, and then probably about 2-3 hours today just kind of tidying stuff up and adding stuff in. But on average, I would say probably at nights, you know, 3 to 5 hours, you know, for a game, something like that.
Not bad. Ian, I think I heard Colin mention today on our daily update that Hearts had come out of their AGM and said that the usual, Shankland's not for sale, which I expect them to do. No doubt that had we asked for a price for him before Danilo got injured, it would be slightly different to the price it would be now. Comments seem to be all about Lawrence Shankland. Would you sign him? For me, I'll give you my answer first, right? For me, it's a question of cost. If he's going to cost sort of 1.5, maybe 2 million, sure, do the deal. Anything more than that, I think we look elsewhere. What's your thoughts, mate?
I think it's definitely a question of cost. I think I've mentioned on previous pods, I've talked about it in the SPFL show in the preview pods, that I think we need to get Shankland. I'd love to see a Scottish striker come in, very much in the mould of Chris Boyd. And I think Lawrence Shankland would walk across broken glass along the M8 to come and play for us. He's a Rangers fan. He's grew up a Rangers fan. He'd give you 100% in every game. He might not start every game, but he gives you an option there as well. Shankland might have a little bit of power with us as well, because if he goes to Hearts and says, look, I want this move, then it puts Hearts in a very precarious position, not to have an unhappy player there. And I think we've seen it in the past with players when they're not happy, and players have this power now in the modern game where they can, through agents and through their own free will, they can express that to the club and say, look, I want to get this move. It's quite interesting it's come out of the AGM today. I'm sure it was a question that was probably brought up by one of the Hearts fans there. I don't want to be held to ransom. I don't want to be a case of saying, right, you know, the price has got to be right. But I don't think any club really, and we're in the same position, we have to admit that as fans, that if we get bids for players and the price is right, they're going to go. And that's just the reality. That's the nature of the game. That's the way it is in Scotland for us. I think if we came in with a bid that worked for both parties, I think it will definitely be a goer. I think Lawrence Shankland will have a say in it. So yeah, I fully expect to see him. Well, again, fully expect. I'd like him to come. Whether our manager rates him or not, that's a different story. Did notice when we played him the last time, we did go up and have a chat with him. So maybe it's just telling him, don't worry, son, you'll be here in January. Hopefully that is the case. So yeah, I'd like to see him go from. I'd like to see it as. I think we will be dipping into the domestic market in January, as well as going into several European markets. Like I've touched on the Benelux countries as well, just when Niels Coppin coming on board. But it would be my number one target in January.
Stevie, thoughts?
Thoughts are, okay, it comes down to price, but look, Hearts are going to sit and say that at the AGM. We could sweeten the deal by giving them Lowry. We could sweeten it by giving them a Scott Wright, who I think would also be a very good fit for them as well, and tick some of their needs. So that can bring the price down. How do you value goals? If Lawrence Shankland was in our team, is he better than what Dessers has been? Is he better than what Lammers has been? Of course he is. Okay, that's a simple fact. Lawrence Shankland has huge carrots awaiting him because Scotland do not have a set number 9 for the European Championships. That is massive. Doesn't matter if you're not a Scotland fan. As a player, knowing that place is up for grabs, you're not probably going to be the starting striker for Scotland at a major championships playing for Hearts. He's a captain. He can play in a number of positions. We know he can play deeper, so that's good. He can take penalties. He has a long throw. He can score with his head, as we've seen. He can score all different types of goals with his feet. He can score tap-ins. He can score deflections. He's got great positional sense. The one thing he lacks is pace, and the one thing that's against him is age. Fair enough. But in this domestic game, we have struggles to score goals. Go and get a guy that not only meets the homegrown criteria for us, but a guy who is desperate to play for the club. I don't think there's any question about that. We've been linked with him for a number of years, right? And there's a reason for that. Now, the Hearts AGM is basically a pony show and it's all for front, all that kind of stuff, right? No way are they going to come out and say, yeah, we're probably going to lose him to Rangers in a couple of weeks. What I don't want to see, however, is it drag on the way the John Suter deal did, where it just projects a whole kind of transfer window and we're left at the end of it with either no player or getting him in at the last minute. We could do the business now. You can make the phone call and you can say what you're looking for, and don't be ridiculous. Like, Heart's going to take a risk because by the time his contract expires, he's going to be near 30. Their financial position isn't particularly great. They've been popped up by James Anderson, so let's not kid ourselves. Whatever they project out and put in the dailies and all that kind of stuff, and PR wise, the facts of the matter are in black and white. They do need to sell. Now, Connor Barron has recently changed his agent. Maybe that's to get the move he wanted, right? Lawrence Shanklin wants the move he wants. Maybe he needs to change agent if his agent can't get it. Put it that way. Ian said about players having power. He's been very respectful to Hearts. I think if he goes there, chaps don't say, look, this is the move I want. Please don't stand in my way. And again, you use that caveat of, I want to play for Scotland at the Euros. I want to go and be able to win things. He's not going to do that, Hearts. It's that simple. Hearts can finish third in the league and everything else. He ain't going to win too much. He might win an odd cup here and there, but Hearts really haven't been at that forefront of that. So, his manager left Kilmarnock to come to us. So he's not if the manager can sit there and probably deny him that move. He's got a manager that understands why he would want to go in that regard. It's just about finding the price it suits. There is concerns about he's not got that pace again behind, but he's a very intelligent footballer. I think his hold-up play would have to improve, but you back Clement to do that. We spent a large part of this pod talking about the improvements Clement's made on the current playing staff. Tell me you couldn't get a guy from Hearts and a guy that's scoring multiple goals for Hearts and multiple different goals and really carrying that team. I mean, you look at that game at the weekend. Hearts were awful. Hearts were absolutely awful. Aberdeen were awful, right? Don't get me wrong, but Hearts were dreadful for long spells of it. Everything positive for Hearts, well, it was great in chances or scoring goals, came through Lawrence Shankland. Now, as I say, you offer them Lowry, who's there. He's not going to come back and start for us. Okay, he's too inconsistent, but he needs to play games as a young player. So you maybe say, have Alex Lowry, we'll take a percentage of the next selling fee. You could even throw in Scott Wright. The Hearts are crying out for wingers. They're crying out for the kind of players. Scott Wright isn't going to feature for us either. McCausland's pushed him further down the pecking order. Maybe you sell Scott Wright to can help fund the Shankland or something like that. But there is options there. Get it done. Bring him in. If it doesn't work out, you're not paying $4 and $5 million. He's not going to be on astronomical wages, and he could always go to the Championship. He's not at the age where he's phasing out. There is downsides to it because probably resale value in a couple of years' time. Fine. Who's going to worry about the resale value if he's getting Lawrence Shankland? Does anybody not think that Lawrence Shankland get between 15, 20 goals for us a year? I mean, if it's 2 million for 15, 20 goals for what, even say 2 year, that's pretty decent value. And people point to, Chris Boyd. Chris Boyd didn't play in the bigger games, but I tell you what, he won cup finals. We won cup finals because of Chris Boyd. You think of the games against Dundee United, you think of the games against Queen of the South. Without Chris Boyd on the side, we don't have the trophies. And that tends to get forgotten about when people talk about, well, he didn't play in Europe, he didn't play in Old Firm games, he didn't do this. Focus on what he can do. That's what the manager did with players like Ross McCausland. Tell me he doesn't look at a player like Lawrence Shankland and think, I can get more out of him. I can, you put him around better players and more chances and more opportunities in games. He's playing a Hearts team that don't create an awful lot as well. So he's been forced to feed in scraps. He's been forced to create on his own. The goal against Celtic he got, where it's a bad ball by the Celtic defender and he has to turn and he has to shoot, he makes it all on his own. The goal against Aberdeen at weekend was head. The goal against us at Ibrox, back post. That's a great leap. It's a great time. It's a great ball. Penalties you factor in as well. He's played the first half of this season really as an attacking mid because Hearts didn't have any other options. Get him done and go, make him go. Sit him down and say, you will be the starting number 9 for Scotland at the European Championships, because there's nothing better when that game kicks off and it's going to be on to the world, right? Germany versus Scotland, number 9 Scotland, Lawrence Shankland Rangers. Wow. That's what every striker dreams of, isn't it? And representing us and getting us back to that stage as well. I think it's a win-win. He doesn't have a lot of injury histories. He had an injury last season and he came back even stronger. There's questions, I think, a wee bit about his temperament. Certainly when he was younger, he had that maybe Billy Big Time thing, but I think that's been phased out of him. And he's a very mature player now, and you see that because he's captain of Hearts as well. So, no. And look, as I say, he's got a manager that should, and I think does, fully understand the reasons behind why he would want to make the move.
In the last point I'm making, Shankland, is a lot of people are questioning his speed. Now, I don't think you're saying Lawrence Shankland for his pace. Right, I don't think, much like Chris Boyd, you're not asking him to do the 100-metre dash. You're buying him for that predator instinct in the box. You're buying him for the goals. Does his pace or lack of it worry you?
No, it doesn't. And I think Stephen touched on the kind of aspects of his game there as well. One thing that really impressed me when we played Hearts recently was his ability to drop deep and protect the ball and allow plays to start in front of him and be a ball carrier. And he reminds me of a certain Colombian centre forward we had for a few seasons. It was quite good at doing that as well. And I think that's something we've lacked in the team, having that striker that's able to drop deep and start to create as well. So lack of pace doesn't bother me. Stephen talked on there and touched on there. He's got so many, strings to his bow that's something that we shouldn't be worried about. We've got plenty of pace in the team at the moment. You talk about supply lines as well. Think about balls that McCausland and Seema can put into somebody like Shankland. And
I think it's Seema, going beyond Shankland. Everybody's talking about Shankland's lack of pace. Seema's got pace. Okay, it gives you an option now. If we are able to bring in somebody else on that right hand side, and you're able to move Cantwell about and all that kind of stuff, you've got interchangeable players. That's intelligent football players. Let the players play. So no, I don't have any concerns in that regard.
And he's got. You can see it in his performances. He's got that game intelligence. He's got that there. He's got it in spades. He's got it in abundance. He can drop in. He can fulfil that role, as Stephen said. Really starting as an attacking mid for Hearts as well. He's got all the elements there. And like I said, I touched on the boy wants to play for us, and he's a Rangers fan. He'll run through a brick wall for you, and it'll be the proudest moment of his life when he signs for us. And you'll see performances and goals from him. I guarantee that. And I think we need to kind of drop as much as we talk about, and I'm a proponent of it as well, that we need to be a trading club. We all know that. We need to be trading. We need to be selling players. We need to be flipping them for a profit. That's the reality of the business that we operate in just now. But let's forget it with somebody like Shankland. Let's get him in. He's at a prime age just now. He's in his prime. Get him in. Get him in the team. Get him scoring goals. And as Stephen said, you dangle that carrot starting for Scotland and getting in that Scotland squad and going to the Euros. That's the pinnacle of every player's career, is going to represent your country. So we can give them that and give them that platform and a European platform to go and do it as well. Potentially win the league, hopefully win the league as well and kick on from there. So, yeah, no brainer.
Right, just really quickly on some other transfers. Conor Barron we spoke about. I'm just going to do yes or no on a free. Stevie, yes. Conor Barron, no?
Yep, makes perfect sense. It'll be a kind of low development fee. Again, it might be one we look to do in January, but again, it will depend on what Aberdeen going to do. If he signs a pre-contract, are they going to freeze him out, not play him in spite themselves? So yeah, I would take him and then work out the details.
Ian, Conor Barron, would you be making that move?
Yes, love a Scottish midfielder. I think it's something we've lacked. We need a successor to Ryan Jack. He's not going to be with us next season. He brings something to the team. We've touched on it in our pods, but he brings something completely different. We need to find that successor to him as well and keep that Scottish identity in the team. So absolutely yes.
I'm not wanting to steal too much of Simon's transfer show because he is, I would say, like a kid at Christmas, but that's just too obvious. Stevie Armstrong at Kelly is another one that's been mentioned. Now, I've been an admirer of him for quite a while. Obviously, he's in the headlines because of Kilmarnock beating Celtic last week and a good performance. I quite like him. It's one of those ones I don't know if he's good enough for us, but I'd be tempted to take the punt. What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, again, it comes down to fee. He's not a great age, but he's a player. When you look at his career, he's got better at every club. He's had setbacks, and I think sometimes we're a wee bit, okay, he's had failures, and people go, well, because he's failed here, we're not going to take him. I quite like somebody with failure on their CV because it means they've had to toughen up mentally. They've had to handle that adversity and overcome it. So I'm not really worried about that. If it was a good fee, he's a player who takes set plays. He can take free kicks. He can take corners. I think he creates more chances in the league. He's very direct. Now, sometimes his quality of delivery can be a wee bit lacking, but you would caveat this with, okay, when he comes to Rangers, he's going to have more of the ball than he has at Kelly. I mean, Kelly, again, a very counter-attacking. I don't think he's the same type of player. People will relate him to Jordan Jones. Jordan Jones did a lot of his work when he was on the counter-attack. He was in space. He was coming into central areas. Armstrong's a wee bit different. He plays on the right and he tends to stay out wide, for the most of it, really hugging that touchline. But he's such a threat. You've seen the pass he made, at the weekend, the game against Celtic. The weight of pass, but the intelligence of knowing when to play it. That's not a ball that's rushed. A lot of other players in that position might have took on a shot, might have been, a wee bit early or a wee bit late with the pass, but he keeps his head up, he's driving forward, and he just threads it through at the right time. He makes a goal. It's a lovely finish. Okay, take nothing away from the finish, but that way to pass, because he drags the defenders out, he makes the defender make a decision. I've either got to engage him or he's going to keep progressing with the ball. So yeah, again, is it 3-4 million? No, but if the fee's decent, why not? Why are we turning players? I mean, we went and bought Lammers. You're telling me that Armstrong couldn't do the job that Lammers doing? Again, I go back to similar positions. What you get in terms of value, and we have a real issue when it comes to homegrown players. Now, there might be a debate, well, he classes as homegrown. I think he just would. I know he went to Wolves when he was about 18 or something, but he's played at Dunfermline, he's played at, other clubs. He struggled at Kilmarnock probably when they come up. He was good in the Championship, or he'd get out hot and cold in the Championship, but he's come on again. You see how he's progressed in a physical stature as well. And look, where would Kilmarnock be without him? I know Vassell's a big part of their game, but where would Kilmarnock be without, Danny Armstrong? Ask yourself that, because he is so pivotal. So if you're taking players from Hearts, you're taking players from Kilmarnock, we're talking about winning this league. Give them then loan, because let's go and have guys to play against Celtic, okay? And let's take their best players. It's what a lot of teams in the continent do. I've got no qualms. Again, it comes down to fee. I'm not sitting here saying paying 3, 4, 5 million for these type of guys. But let's be sensible. And you know the other thing, I know there might be fans of other clubs going, no, you're not having our players. I would ask the fans of Aberdeen, I would ask the fans of Hearts, I would ask the fans of Kilmarnock, do you want the money to stay in Scottish football? Or will your hatred and bitterness drive it away? Because that comes the bottom line. Okay? Do you want it to stay in your game, and that money you can reinvest? I think we've been guilty of not doing that in the past, and I think other clubs have been guilty of saying, well, fuck it, we don't want Rangers money. And it's just a snobbery by them, it's a snobbery by us. And look at the financial position that all of us are in. We're not helping each other. I think we're better when, I'm not going to say when we work together, but when the money's spread about the game. I think, Aberdeen have got a really decent youth system. You can see that in some of the players they bring through, like Palava, you think of Millen, okay, they'll have that. Certainly the likes of Ramsey that they went out and sold. Clarkson will probably make money on as well. I would rather the money stayed in Scotland. I really would, because all that happens if it goes to the Championship, it goes out of our game. So again, I'm all for it, but it comes down to kind of fee and availability.
Sorry, I started laughing at that comment for Jim there. Ian, Armstrong, yes or no?
If the fee's right, then yes, absolutely. Why not? As I say, let's get that. And you look at Kelly's situation. Stephen touched on it there, keeping the money within the game. Kilmarnock have announced they're going to relay their park. They're going to get a grass park down. They're building a new training centre down by the M77. They need money, and they've got to be within that trade model as well. They're enough fishes in the pond that is the SPFL, and at the end of the day, as Stephen said, they'll throw off the shackles of that hatred. Just say you want to keep the money within the game as well. And again, if the boy wants to move, then he might go to McInnes and say, look, a certain Derek McInnes moved from Morton to Rangers at one point as well. So I'm sure he'll have an understanding of that. He won't want to lose a player of his calibre, but at the end of the day, it fulfills that quota. And I think we need to. I've said it before, I'll say it again. We need to get more of a Scottish identity within the team, in my opinion.
Hey, we're stealing Simon's transfer show right now, lads. So I'm going to ask one question, and it's because it's been kicked about the chat. We love a rumour. We love a wee bit of transfer nonsense. Stevie, have you heard of Michael Olunga? Now, I literally had to text Simon and ask him who he was, but apparently somebody that's been playing in the Qatari League. I've not heard anything, but the usual rumours is someone will be shown about the training ground this week. Perhaps it was by Robin van Persie, because we've been here before. But have you heard of this chap?
I can't say I know too much about him, but if he's playing in the Qatari League, look, I don't want to be too disrespectful to it, but I don't imagine it's particularly up to much. Okay, the facilities will be absolutely top class. That I have no doubt, and I can speak to his experience in first hand. But in terms of the quality of the league, I'd be a wee bit dubious. I think if we're going to go out and get players, there's problem positions, okay? And we're going to have to work within the confines of a budget. You could be looking at somebody like a Maxwell at Sheffield United who's not particularly getting a game, playing left back, an area of need, and it's going to be a pressing area of need. Centre half, you might be able to move it in at the summer. You might look at a player like, say, Scott McKenna, who's been frozen out, and a lot of people might go, wow. but he's very good in the air. He's left-footed. He's not training with Nottingham Forest first team. His contract expires. If we're going to then dangle that carrot at the European Championships for Scotland, he's going to have to play games to be in the plane. It's that simple. So you might get a loan deal. So somebody like Max Lowe as well, who was obviously at Aberdeen before, you might be able to get on that left-hand side for a kind of decent fee or a kind of nominal fee or a loan. That's probably where our transfers are going to be in the summer or January rather. I don't think going out. Look, we get stung previously. Got out buying average foreign shite, basically, right? That's what happened in the summer, and that's why we're in the position we're in with some of our players. I've got full faith in Niels Coppin. You look at his past record. You look at the players that he's identified, especially from Belgium. I think we'll go that route again. I don't suppose we'll deviate from that, but we've went down the Belgian route before. Rabbi Matondo's from the Belgian route. Rabbi Matondo's picking up wages, and he's headless chicken when he plays. Ian was kind to me when he said, he's a wee bit wild when he comes on. He's great in the Scottish League when he gets in behind, but he's like that guy who you used to play with football when you just put over the a road runner, put the ball over the top and tell him to run. If he has to think about it, he's in trouble, right? So you have to get players like him off the books. If you're telling me you get him off the books, you bring in Armstrong, and then you can bring in a couple of other players on loan, fine. I don't expect huge movement in January because it's not a good market. I expect maybe all in between 4 and 6 million, and I think that's still probably pushing it. We have to get players out. Our squad is absolutely bloated, but it's bloated of players on high wages that's not contributing, and we have to drive that down. But more than that, we have to get an identity back. We've so much deviated from what we were. We're just it's a mash of players sometimes, and while it's working in Europe and while you have quality, is that going to be enough over the course of a season? At this point in time, we're just trying to stay in it, stay in touching distance. I love young McCausland, but if McCausland has to start 10, 15 games in a row for us, I think we're in a wee bit of bother, because they type of players you want to play, you want to introduce, you want to let them get that taste, but then you want to take them out and just protect the player himself from burnout. So they're the areas that we're looking at, taking guys from the Qatari League, possibly. I mean, like the manager, new sporting director, whatever his title is, I know it's been moved. He's got a background in scouting, and he certainly comes with a degree. If he's for him, okay, I'm for him. I'll put my trust in him and wait and see what he gets. But I would like us to go. In January, you're not going to have time to integrate a lot of players, so they have to hit the ground running. And everybody who comes in is going to be on the manager's clock. So look, we expect to still be in a title race. Go and get guys that can help us make an impact and make a dent in that, and hopefully bring that league title back home.
And with that, I think we'll wrap up there, because I don't want to steal any more of Simon's transfer show. Thank you all that tuned in live, and we'll put this pod out as normal tomorrow afternoon. Stevie, as always, thank you for all your hard work, mate.
No, thank you very much, boys. My absolute pleasure. And thank you very much everyone for joining. It's been a pleasure.
Ian, thank you as always, mate.
Thanks, guys. Really enjoyed it. Let's hope that we keep this momentum going into Sunday and we come away with a famous victory and get a bit of silverware in the cabinet. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, we've went far too long without winning this trophy, and outside the league title, this one is the one that feels most like ours. We will be back in very short order to preview St Johnstone at home. But as always, thank you very, very much for listening and watching. We will speak to you again soon.